Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Donovan. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. First and foremost, let's start off with everything with Daryl. I knew things were going to go sideways with Daryl. I mean, for one, it's just kind of that thing of like, this ain't the first time. It's happened over and over again. Daryl just gets way over his head. Why? Because once again, you start listening to Mickey, and even when you kind of got smart, you're like, bump that, I'm away from Mickey. It's like, trouble still ends up finding its way to following you. And it's so sad the way the situation played. I'm curious if Bunchy had been there like Ray had wanted him to be, like staking out Daryl's place where things had played out the way they did. To be fair, I don't know. I mean, to be fair, Bunchy was on his way to Daryl's place, but the whole Declan skulking out the place was already happening at that time, so I don't know. But maybe Bunchy could have showed up in time to see like, oh yeah, something's going on here. But yeah. It's interesting because obviously, like, I mean, it makes sense. Ray's got ties to the Sullivan family, so he's probably slightly familiar with Molly. He probably just didn't remember her as much, but because she was a kid at the time. But it seems like it seems like he has the most interaction with Declan, because Declan was like, oh, remember when we were in 6th grade and I kicked your ass? And Ray's like, no. And so, so Declan's like, hey, you either handle your brother's situation, the whole Daryl situation, you either handle that yourself or I handle it, and it gets messy. And it's so interesting because with everything that Ray does, despite everything with Daryl, he still looks after Daryl. And I don't think Daryl kind of takes that for granted that, like, Ray does think of him as a brother. It's like, yeah, you can be a screw up and everything, kind of like his other brothers on occasion, but even himself on many occasion, but he still looks out for him. If it was Mickey, he would have been like, nah, bump that, nail Mickey's ass to the wall for that situation. But because it was Daryl, he was looking out for him, because it's like he didn't want any, because for one, he didn't want Gary, which, side note, Gary played by the actor who played Butch on and kind of spoilers, Solomon Grundy on Gotham. So I was like, hey, Butch. But regardless, me going on a tangent and everything, but he knew that. I mean, hell, Gary literally broad daylight took a shot at Jim. So it's like, what would he do if he found out it was Daryl? So it's like it's nice to know that even despite everything, even despite Daryl literally fighting you and literally knocking you out in the middle of the street with a glass bottle over the head, that you're still looking out for him, because despite everything, that's still one of your little brothers. So why not? So I think that's kind of something commendable to kind of, look at with that situation. But the moment like Declan shows up to, making that offer to Daryl, I'm kind of like, I don't know, man. Because I figured, is Declan really going to pay out like $2 million to get the? It's like, well, I mean, I guess in the grand scheme of things, it would make sense, because he knows that his dad was be so indebted to him. So it's like, oh, if I fix this for him, then he will let me run the company. So it's like $2 million now for like a crap ton of money in the future. That's what I'm kind of thinking. It's kind of an investment, but then I was like, at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. I actually halfway expected him to pull out a gun or something in that moment. I'm like, yeah, but it's like, why would you do that? I mean, legitimately, Daryl did do kind of a smart thing. I mean, you could almost say that's smart and it's not smart at the same time, hiding the bond in a different room. And putting like it's like, it makes sense, but at the same time, you're like, yeah, but I mean, well, it does have do not disturb, so no one's going to, go there, especially if you rented the room, so no one would have any reason to go in there. No cleaner would have any reason to go in there, considering the fact that you got no. So, I mean, like I said, it's smart, but I mean, it's just kind of that thing of like, yeah, you basically would have to keep your eye on that room 24/7 to make sure no one goes in there, like, make sure that no one's. I think most people, in that situation, people who are cleaning rooms are going to be like, oh, I'm not going to go in there. So I think, yeah, like I said, it's kind of smart. It's just. Once again, it's just like all the stupid stuff him and Mick have been up to. You kind of, it's like, yeah, go ahead and give, cut Daryl some slack, and be like, yeah, that was kind of a pretty smart move. That way you don't have the bonds on you yourself. So that's not an issue, but it's so sad. The moment he's sitting there planning stuff out with Jasmine, I'm like, oh, this ain't going to end well. Oh, this ain't going to end well. And the moment Declan's got the money on there, I'm like, oh, there ain't no way this is really going to go away. And it's like, oh, some of that's fake. It's like, yep, it didn't go the way you wanted it to. I was actually surprised. I was wondering, like, all right, how's this going to go down? Jasmine pulling out the gun, firing. It's like, yo, let's get out of here. And I was like, okay, they're driving away, and there's still time. I'm like, please don't. He's shooting. I'm like, all right, please don't make it a shot that hits. And lo and behold, it's a shot that hits. I'm like, that sucks. You just, you made all these plans with Jasmine and stuff like that. He even talked about that bird that doesn't have fear in its nature, which I think that's foreshadowing, Daryl's whole situation. But I mean, it's like, man, that sucks. She literally died, her head landing on you, blood on your hands, and he's still driving later on with her dead in the passenger seat. It's like, that sucks. But you see that look in Daryl's eye. I don't know what to make of that look, or whether it's like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to kill Sullivan. I'm going to kill all of them, like type of situation. Or maybe that's meaning like, and thinking that moment, like I said, supposed to be foreshadowing of like the bird with no fear. He's like, forget it. Like, the fact of the matter is, I'm tired of being everyone's punk. I'm tired of just being, screwed over to every situation. When it comes to my family, when it comes to this, I can't catch a damn break. You know what? No, I'm done. I think he's going to be the one that ends up putting a bullet in Declan. We'll ultimately have to see. This is going to be interesting because, I mean, I'm skipping around here, but basically this episode is basically set up the Donovans versus the Sullivans kind of again. It seems like, that once again, and it's going to be interesting to see where Molly and Ray fall at the end of all of this, because I brought it up before, making a comparison of almost like, like Romeo and Juliet. Get more and more Romeo and Juliet as the season goes on, considering like the bad blood between the families and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting to see what Daryl does. And kind of speaking on the whole Ray situation, I thought was kind of fascinating. He ends up telling Molly a little bit more about himself, in the sense of like, yeah, like how I met your dad. I went to that bar that day with a knife planning on killing my dad, but your dad told me to walk away. So I guess it's kind of showing like, Jim, I kind of owe him. That's why he works for Jim, because it's like Jim looked after him and his family, and it's like he was good to me, so that's why he kind of worked for Jim. And we kind of got flashbacks to that, and I thought it was kind of interesting. We see where Ray got the good old bat from. Like, I love that the fact of the matter is, when he's going to collect money for him, it didn't go well. It's like the dude was about to close the door, and Ray's punching and ends up bruising. It looks like he kind of bruised his knuckles, or even broke them. But whatever the case may be, it's like it wasn't smooth operation. I mean, this is him younger. He's not as experienced, but we kind of see the bruiser that he ends up becoming later on, breaking into the dude's window, taking the bat off the wall. I'm like, so this must be where it all started. It all started here, didn't it? And I was like, wow. It's kind of interesting to see that, like, in that moment. I think in that moment, he's like, this feels good. This is right up my alley. So it's like a superhero finding their signature weapon. It's like, I know it's not the right example to make, but it's almost like Green Arrow picking up a bow and arrow for the first time and like, that feels good. That feels right. That type of situation. So I think that's kind of pretty neat. And then there's the whole Gary situation. I thought was kind of interesting, where it's like, Ray automatically knew that Jim had nothing to do with it, because Jim kind of made it clear, but that started making me think, because Gary was like, oh no, it was him. It's almost like he knew. I was like, wait a minute, we didn't see how that whole thing with Daryl went down. Not unless Daryl didn't actually pull the trigger, but I was like, everything made it seem like he pulled the trigger, but I was like, not unless he was actually secretly in there. He saw what went down, grabbed the tapes and bounced. That actually Jim was the one that got to Ronnie first. I was like, not unless we're setting that up, because they didn't show everything that went inside. But it's like, no, it turned out 100, like I said, it ended up being 100% Daryl. So but for a second I was like, could they possibly be insinuating that it actually was Jim at the end of the day? But it's like, no, it wasn't, because Gary just doesn't know about the whole Mickey situation, because obviously Ray immediately probably thought, like, once again, he didn't go into this thinking it was going to be Daryl that did it. He was thinking it was going to be Mickey. I'm sure, 100% sure that's who he expected to find on that recording, not Daryl. So that was interesting. But then Gary says this line of like, you're working for him? What he did to your sister, and what was it? Didn't he say like your wife? And then Ray's like, wait, what did you just say? And it's like, if you want answers, go find them yourself. I'm like, what the hell? I mean, not unless I heard him wrong. I'm pretty sure he said your wife and your sister. And I'm like, what? And then that starts trailing in the back of my mind. I'm like, Bridget's suicide. So did Jim do something to her? That's why she killed herself. Like, he might have like assaulted her, and that like maybe she felt shame. She might even gotten pregnant and she felt shame about it and ended up killing herself. And because that was the big thing too. I think this is going to be interesting. Like, that's always been just a thing of like, I think my assumption was always just like Bridget was going through some stuff. She was just sad or whatever, but it's like, not to kind of minimize it by just saying whatever. I apologize for that. I feel wrong just saying like whatever, but like I just assumed that she was like sad or depressed, like that's what led to her suicide, because that was something they've never really touched on. They just touched on the fact that she killed herself, but they never went on beyond that. Wasn't the whole thing, wasn't she on drugs? I could be wrong, but I could have sworn like she did get like hooked on drugs and stuff like that. That might have been the case. I don't remember. I swear I feel like that was the case, but like I said, I could be 100% wrong. But whatever those circumstances were, it's like, okay, so Jim must have done something to her, because now like Ray's asking Molly to get him the tapes, and so it's like, okay, so because obviously Jim didn't know at that time O'Malley was recording him and stuff like that, so there's something on those tapes probably connecting the whole why Bridget like ended up killing herself later on, and that was so interesting. But like I said, he said also your wife, so it's like, is there some advocate like I said, or did I mishear that? I could have sworn it, but he definitely said your sister, but I like, not unless I misheard that, but I was like, what the hell is that all about? He definitely said was talking about your family, like it's like, okay. And the fact is that Gary, and that's interesting too, because Gary knows that, but Ray doesn't. I mean, to be fair, you were working for the guy for so long, so I'm sure whatever happened, Bridget kept quiet about it. Like probably not many people knew. It's like, but that's the thing. How did Gary know? Well, I was about to say, I forgot. His dad was doing all those recordings, so he must have like heard some of those recordings at one point in time himself. I wonder at what point did O'Malley tell his kids about the recordings? It makes you wonder about that, but regardless, that's something I'm really, really interested in finding out, like what that all means, because I think we're going to get some probably flashbacks to that, because at the the flashback in this episode, we saw Ray talking to Bridget outside of Sullivan's place, so it's like, all right, that's probably going to lead into something. So I'm interested to see what that ends up being. What's also interesting too, I'm blanking on her name. I meant to look up her name again because I looked it up before. I'm so sorry about it. I'll include it in the comments down below. But the actress who plays Molly, I didn't know this. She voices Friday in the MCU movies. Tony's new AI system after Jarvis. I didn't know that. I was like, whoa, that's so cool. I totally didn't know that. I was like, that's so awesome. So, nevertheless, then we get to the other trippy side of this episode. It's a little Smitty thing. I love Ray seeing like, because he sees someone, I'm like, who's it going to be? Is it going to be Jim? Is it going to be Smitty? And it's like, yep, it's your boy Smitty. I'm like, oh yeah, you're sleeping there. It's like, right, yeah, all right. And then he's like, wanting to go out with Ray and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, it's like, well, I think it's that thing of like, Ray kind of feels awkward. Once again, it's like, it's that awkward thing of like, he kind of knew that Bridget was at least potentially going to go down that route, because she brought up that whole thing of like, kind of feeling, regretting, kind of like she didn't want to be married anymore and stuff like that. It's like, if you don't want to cheat, don't cheat. So for him, I think it's a thing of like, oh, like the signs are kind of already there. So when it happening, I guess it sucks. But at the same time, I guess it's not too surprising. But also, it's like, he probably feels a little weird too, because it's like, you're my daughter, so you kind of got that from me. It kind of runs in the family, and so I'm sure there's some part of him that kind of feels responsible in that regard. So, and obviously, he cares about Smitty. It's like, you've been good to my daughter. You've been good for her and good to her. So it's like, you're part of this family. So, but then things start getting weird when Smitty kept bringing up stuff. I'm like, I kept being like, is he wearing a fucking wire? I was like, he's talking a lot about this stuff. That's what I kept being like. The fact is, we never saw the other side of that conversation with him and Perry. I'm like, they left that very open. But I was like, nah, Smitty. But then, like I said, Terry made that line of like, oh, well, then she must be calling me about the alibi. But to our knowledge, she never called Terry, so that should have been a key sign. But that's why I was saying, like, we'll ultimately have to wait and see if she calls Terry or not to see what really did. But I was like, I was going to give your boy Smitty the benefit of that. But then he started talking about it too much. I'm like, you didn't talk about it last season when you actually did it. You didn't talk about it this much. And you sure as hell didn't talk about it this much, this point in the season, until after the whole Perry meeting. That's why I'm like, I mean, there's a part of me that was giving him the benefit of the doubt, like, oh, maybe it is just simply weighing on his subconscious. But I'm like, yeah, but the fact that she threatened to kind of take Bridget down, so that might be what this is all about. You make the argument that it's more so self-preservation, but I think it is legitimately, despite everything, he is looking out for Bridget too, because she got roped in all this. If it was just Smitty, I'm curious, would he act the way he had? Like, would he have done what he did? Regardless, it's like the moment he went in there and it's like, oh man, you're just going to delete that? Is this a crime scene? It's like, I was like, oh, I'm like, and then he brings it up again. He's like, yeah, Terry said you shot the dude like 20 times. And I'm like, what are you doing? Or Smitty, don't tell me. And it's like, there she is. I'm like, Smitty. I was like, no. But it's like, yeah. And then even Smitty puts it on record. Yeah, that cop, he was going to kill Aunt Sandy. You did what you had to do. He's like, I did too. And, you know, he regrets it because he feels bad because, like, Ray's been good to him. So it's like, I mean, let's not forget Ray's also the one that basically helped pull the strings and make it so that he could get the surgery that ended up saving his life. I mean, granted, Ray kind of screwed it over so he couldn't get the surgery in the first place so that Abby would get it. But, you know, he made it right in the end. So, but, you know, and all those times Smitty's calling him dad and everything, it's like, oh, dude, it's like, no. But you, at that moment, you're like, yeah, Perry's not going to jump on this immediately because she wants to get everyone. It's kind of like, almost like a Rico, well, I was about to say almost like a Rico case. Maybe, but basically she wants to get all the players involved, get as much evidence and all this confirmation about what everyone else did. Like, Ray's kind of the linchpin in the taking down everything and everybody. But then, like, Ray goes outside and he sees, because I thought it was kind of interesting, like, when they left that place, I was like, I halfway expected that white van in the background. I was like, oh, that's kind of expected something to happen. Then you literally see it later on because that's what they're driving. I was like, oh, maybe I've been watching too many like cop shows to notice like undercover cop type of surveillance type of stuff. But regardless, Ray started immediately picking up when he went outside. It's like a white van. He's like, what? He's like, he's dealt with the cops plenty enough times to be like, all right, goes in there, Smitty, take off your shirt. It's like, Ray, I did it because they were going to come after Bridget. I'm sorry. And so it's like, yep, he's got the wire, goes outside. One of the cops is trying to stop Ray. Ray drops the dude. And like Perry's got to go. I won't lie to you. Part of me was like, don't tell me you're about to go out there and kill those cops, Ray. Don't tell me you're about to do that. But it's like, all right. He's like, you want to talk? Let's talk. And I'm like, all right. Stuff is about to go down. Now, there's many different ways this could go. Either he's going to try and offer up his dad, but it's like, nah, Mickey's not good, probably not a good. For him, it's like he needs to get rid of his dad. His dad is nothing but damn trouble, brings nothing but trouble to his life. So it's about taking his dad down. Because also taking Mickey out of the equation is also not just good for him, it's good for his entire family. Like, because of Mickey, Daryl keeps getting dragged into stuff. To be fair, you also got to remember this all circles back around because Claudette kind of, you know, put them in this situation too. So it's kind of like, it's a complicated thing, so it's like it's kind of because of Claudette that things have kind of transpired. I mean, to be fair, because for her, she's only looking out for Daryl. She don't care about anything Terry, Bunchy, or Ray might get mixed up in, or damn sure don't care about Mickey. So the fact of the matter is, as long as her son don't end up dead, which in that instance he could have, hell, this could all be foreshadowing. The fact is that Daryl is going to die trying to get his revenge or whatever, getting mixed up in all of this. Like, I had a feeling like this situation might legitimately be the death of him, but you know, hey, still got a couple episodes left in this season. It's going to be interesting to see how that ends up going, but the other side of things for me, it's like, he's going to turn on Sullivan. It's like, well, Jim's not the best dude in the first place. Plus finding out like, yo, like there might have been something complicated between you and my sister and it might be the reason why she died. She killed herself. So it's like, that's going to be a thing in itself. Because for Ray, it's self-preservation to a certain extent, but more so than anything, he knows that if he goes down, his entire family's going down with him. It's like Bridget might get some like leeway in certain regards, but they still might try to take her down for her involvement because Perry doesn't know how involved they were unless, you know, Smitty, because that's the thing, Smitty didn't have a lawyer or anything, so he didn't have anyone draft up some immunity deal to be like, yo, if I confess all this, me and Bridget, we go for it. Maybe he was smart enough to do that. Maybe it's just they got reduced charge. That's the thing, you know? So Ray's not going to let his entire family, because everyone involved, like, Mick, yeah, but he's going, once again, he's already looked after Daryl once this episode. He's going to look after Daryl again. But more so than anything, his baby girl's involved in all of this. That's the thing of, I don't think he 100% blames Smitty. I think he's probably pissed at Smitty, but I don't think he blames Smitty because for him, it's like, hey, this is the Donovans. The Donovans, we're used to this. Smitty's new to the Donovan family, so like, you know, and because even Abby, it's like, for Abby, it's like she grew up kind of around this world to a certain extent, you know. in Boston and everything. So it's like that wasn't too much of a stretch for her. That's why she was always like very ride or die, especially when she found out really what Ray was up to. And it's like when shit hit the fan and went down in season 4, she was like, nah, we got this. We in this together, you know? So that's why I'm kind of like I said, Smitty's new to this world. Once again, they dangle it in front of us. We don't know anything about Smitty's past. That's why I'm curious to find out about, like, you know, because he talked about some of like his childhood trauma and stuff like that. He would never use it against Bridget. Like he said that last episode, he would never use it to hurt as an excuse to hurt her. So I'm like, what is that about? We're gonna dive into that at any point in time? Probably not. I'm curious to see what that does. Cause Bridget finds out, she's not gonna be happy. It's gonna be a whole complicated thing of like, it's like, well, you cheated on me. Yeah, but you were gonna send my dad to prison. So that's going to be a whole thing. But, you know, for Smitty, it's going to be like, I'm sorry, but the fact of the matter is, despite everything, I was looking out for you. So that's probably going to cause even more complications in the family. I'm sure Terry's not going to be too happy about the whole Smitty situation, too, because he likes Smitty. And he probably end up punching Smitty in the face. Hell, for all we know, Ray might end up doing that. Ray's not going to kill Smitty, but I think he's going to beat the crap out of him or something. I kind of hope not. I think he's going to be a little more understanding just because of that. Because also, it kind of goes back to what I was bringing up earlier. I think Ray blames himself for a lot of these circumstances. It's like because of his connection to Mac and the whole Ferrati situation. I mean, getting mixed up in that world last season is what put his family in the middle of this. Like, Bridget would have never gotten kidnapped. The fact of the matter is, all those dirty cops wouldn't have been in their lives and in their business like that. It's because he got involved with the wrong people. So for him, everything that went down with those dirty cops, is like he blames himself. I mean, that might be something too, because once again, I don't like, Perry's not coming at this from the perspective of, oh, these were dirty cops that got killed. It's like these are just cops in general. I mean, even if she was coming from the angle of dirty cops, you're still killing cops, you're still killing people, and it seems like Perry's a very upstart person of like, I'm gonna figure this out. You know what I was sitting here just thinking about too? I'm an idiot. I kept throwing out, oh, taking down Jim. It's like, well, Ray's not really in that 100% position to take down Jim. He's heard some stuff, but he hasn't verified enough to be like, oh, I'm gonna throw Jim under the bus. The person he could easily throw under the bus is Ferrati. I mean, granted, Ferrati's got a lot of power and reach, so he's able to kind of skate past a lot of that stuff. Because I was about to say, not unless he throws Ferrati under the bus, because admitting that those cops were dirty cops that worked for him, that's another thing. I mean, literally let's not forget that reporter who tried to take down Ferrati last season. That didn't go well for him. He ended up dead, so hopefully the same thing doesn't end up happening to Perry, but that's why I'm kind of like, Ray could go many different directions with that. So it's going to be interesting to see like where that all ends up what that all ends up turning into. And since I brought up Terry, it's kind of interesting his side of the story where it's like, him with Dolores and everything. Basically, she wants that emerald necklace she had given to like the group and everything. It's interesting because we haven't seen Liberty in a while. I'm curious. We're probably going to see her next episode and next time, like some storylines with Terry. She's going to track down Terry and be like, what the fuck did you do? Because Terry got Bunchy. They went up there. I love that guy's like, oh, hey, Terry. He's like, fuck you. And the guy turns to Bunch. Hey. And Bunch is like, hey. And then it's like, yeah, give Dolores back her emerald necklace. It's like, oh, she gave it, does blah, 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 blah. Kind of like some schemy cult stuff of just kind of like, well, it was for the benefit of blah, blah, blah. She gave it up for negative energy, blah, 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 to kind of rid herself of negative energy, blah, 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 blah. And Terry's like, you got one more time. And then he's in the middle of talking. Terry punches him in the face, pow. And he's literally halfway through saying Terry's name, pow, punch in the face again. Bunchy comes in there and it's like Terry messed him up. And it's like, despite Terry's circumstances, let's not forget he's a fighter, he's a boxer. Love, he's got that statue in his hand, and Bunch is like, yo, if I were you, I'd tell him. Tells him, and they leave with the necklace. So that's nice because obviously Dolores wants to give it. Because obviously I think, because Dolores believes so much in all of this, and it's like, look at her, she's still sick and she's dying, so it's kind of like she was taken advantage of. That's how Terry kind of feels about it. And it's also because she saved his life. He was literally going to walk into that water and let himself die. But, once again, I think also maybe probably in the back of his mind probably makes him think about, Abby as well. That's kind of what comes to my mind, but still. But like I said, I'm curious to see what ends up happening because Liberty's the one that brought Terry there. So I'm curious to see if there's going to be any extended conversation on that part. We haven't touched on it at all either, but like Bunchy started things too, because remember that mom's son, her son died And once again, it's like Bunchy was trying to help her out and everything, but her son died because of him. So it's like, is she going to be more willing to be like, yo, like, I mean, it's not going to be the easiest thing because it's like, yeah, my son died because of you. Even if you were trying to make it right in the end, it doesn't matter. So she might still try to sue him particularly. I don't know. It's also interesting, too, because you have Bunchy kind of like, oh, I'm working for Ray. It's like, oh, you got me doing all this menial labor in the sense of like, oh, yeah, staking out Sandy's place. Oh, now you got me staking out Daryl's place. All right, sure. I didn't think this was, I thought it was going to be a little more, even keel. But it's like, well, to be fair, you're kind of the new Lena to a certain extent. I mean, granted, not as extensive as a Lena, but obviously you're kind of filling the role of a new Lena until he finds a new Lena. But it's going to be really interesting to see where all this takes us going forward into the next episode. I'm really excited to find out what happens. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.